Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar by World Conservation Initiative. And today we'll be looking at interdisciplinary approach to climate change and how it relates to you. What is your role in fighting climate change, in creating sustainable environment? And today we're having an amiable guest in the house. Is a PhD fellow at AU Denmark and is also a data scientist by the name Meshach Aderele. You are welcome on board, sir.
Oh, thank you very much, Hannah. It's nice to be here
It's
again.
nice having you too.
Yeah, yeah,
It's nice having you on board. So
yeah.
today we'll be looking at different questions that is going to expose us to different dynamics of climate change. We have all been hearing climate change, and some of us we don't really know or understand how this climate change works. Why are we so much concerned about climate change? So today we'll be addressing some key questions that will open up our heart and our understanding more about climate change and how to join in the global voice against climate change, sustainable environment, biodiversity conservation. So just relax, grab your wine as we proceed. So I'll be asking our guests the first question for today. Mr. Meshach, are you ready for us?
I think I am.
Thank you. So the first question I will be asking you is, as a climate scientist, yes, a data scientist, but also in climate line, I would like to ask that what are the ways that the interdisciplinary approaches and corporations among organizations has been able to improve the efficiency of efforts aimed at fighting climate change?
Okay. Thank you very much. When we talk about interdisciplinary approach to the efforts of different disciplines to dealing with climate change, it's just like saying we we are all a part of the problem. Then for the solution to happen, we need to be a part of it also. So that is why almost every individual effort that we make in our profession, even in our personal lives, needs to come together to solve the problem. So that is what I will say about interdisciplinary efforts. Not just in terms of when we say interdisciplinary, not just in terms of like maybe career alone, but we are talking about even individual will play a role because if we classify it, we belong to a specific discipline. The market woman belongs to a specific discipline. So far you are doing something, so far you are using something, you have a part to play. So that is what I have to say about that for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That was quite insightful. Like how our speaker has said that there are different ways we can integrate ourselves into fighting climate change, regardless of what you're doing, directly or indirectly. You're creating to the climate problem in the society. So as you're creating the problem, be also involved in fighting climate change. Thank you very much, sir, for that. So our next question will be how has other organizations, platform like technology, policy, sciences, how have they been able to come together to tackle the intricate problems of climate change in our environment and also the frequent issues, the societal issues we have concerning climate change? How have been able to come together, in your own opinion, to fight climate change?
Okay. Thank you for that question too. Here's the thing. Let's take a step backwards to when you talk about solving a problem or having a good environment in general. If you look at even God, when he wanted to create man, he said, let us create man in our own image. And when you look at it, it's not just let me now create man in my image, it is us. That means for almost everything that we need to do and achieve on, of course, planet Earth, there's a need for us. That is, it needs to be a joint action. All right. So, how, as different disciplines, how have they been like contributing to dealing with climate change? And I'm going to touch specific disciplines. Okay. Don't be angry with me if I'm not mentioning your discipline specifically. Okay. I try to like categorize things, and it is from that I'm going to talk. Okay. And I'm a scientist and a researcher. Even though like I apply a specific technology skill set within academia as a scientist, and which is data science. Now, this is the thing. For scientists and researchers, the first thing that, of course, they've been doing that, and we could do more, is to conduct research to understand climate change impact patterns and potential solutions. Because the reality is that understanding climate change impact patterns and potential solutions is not just something we do once and for all. Because what seemed to be a solution 3 years ago may not be the solution today. Why? Because there's a the problem doesn't remain the same per time. It gets worse, all right? Or the way people will say, "Oh, it's getting worse." The way people will say this thing is getting worse and the likes, because the problems of course get worse over and over. Okay, so that means we need a new approach. Like one of my professors will say, he said you cannot do the same thing the same way over and over and expect a different result. That is foolishness. Okay, so and that is where the scientists and researchers come in. There need to be continual exploration of climate change impact, continual exploration of the patterns, and continual exploration of the potential solutions so that we can know what to do. Okay, and it is broad because we need to break things down. Okay, for me now, I'm applying mine in connecting how can we reduce the impact of agriculture on environment, and that is my own area. We have people that are working in researching about how can we recycle better, how can we create and recommend sustainable practices. We have scientists that are working on how can we change our diet, how we eat in a way that it is climate friendly. So we have biologists researching into biodiversity. We have people doing different kind of things within science so that they can contribute to that. But where is the limitation? The limitation here that we need to make a lot of effort about is on how we share our findings to inform policymakers and the public. To inform policymakers and the public. And here is a gap. There seems to be a gap between the research findings and the policymakers. Because when you look at policymakers, a lot of them are not researchers. And when you look at scientists, I mean, we are scientists, we do the work, we do everything. But the harmony is still a big issue in the present days. It's still a big issue. How do we connect it together? And that comes from communication of science. That comes from communication of science. How do we communicate science in a way that those who are not like scientists can understand and be able to take action about scientific findings? And that is the gap that needs to be filled in this season in dealing with climate change. So I'll highlight that again. We need to conduct, of course, continually conduct research to have new findings about impact patterns and potential solutions. Also, of course, develop different sustainable practices and recommend them. And the other one is to share findings to inform policymakers and public, and to handle sharing findings to inform policymakers and the public. There's a need to communicate science in a way that those who are not scientists can understand and take action. And another part of when you talk about the different discipline, we have people like the engineers and technologists. Engineers and technologists. Take for example the solar energy thing. Okay, I'm not the one who can do that. I can't do that. I don't have engineering background. Okay, I can't build solar energy. So that is where engineers will come in to provide like that solution. We have engineering in different form. The mechanical engineers. We can see what Tesla is doing. We have civil engineers. We have agricultural engineers. We have technologists. We have the software engineer. We have everybody. But here's the thing: we need to always have behind our mind in our innovations the ultimate question of, as good as my new innovation or as good as this innovation may be, will it be climate friendly? As good as this innovation may be, will it contribute to solving climate problem? And that's a big question that we need to ask, even as we develop technology, as we develop the software, as we do the things that we do. And another category in those disciplines, we have the policymakers and the economists. People who work on finance, people who make policy, people who do politics, and the likes. Is how do they push for policies that promote sustainable development? How do they push for policies that promote sustainable development? That is another thing that is very important. Another that is very important. How can policymakers push for incentives for people to take action when it comes to climate change? How can they push for incentives? Okay, that's another thing to look at. Okay, what kind of incentive can we design to encourage people to go to take climate action, of course, to help in reducing climate change. Looking at an incentive, like let's say uh if your business is climate friendly and everything, you're going to get, let's say, 0.5 reduction in tax. That's an incentive, and people will want to do that. That's an incentive. Or if another incentive is this kind of incentive of, we're not going to, like probably NAFDAC is saying, we're not going to certify your product if it is not climate friendly. Do you understand what I'm saying? Look at the two-way. It's a two-way thing. We can give probably reduced tax as an incentive. Of course, this is ambiguous, and so much of so futuristic. It is ambiguous because there are other things that go into tax reduction, and everything is not as simple. I mean, I might be oversimplifying in this case, but just get a picture. I'm just listing an example. But when you now look at the other way, where when NAFDAC is saying we're not going to certify this product if it is not climate friendly, that's also another kind of incentive. Okay, then everybody needs now to go back to the drawing board to say, how can my manufacturing process be climate friendly? How can the things that I do in my business be climate friendly? Is there a way that, even if it's a logistic company, is there a way that we can deliver all our products to our customers and reduce our impact on the climate? Okay, that's another thing. Should we switch to electric vehicle instead of the kind of vehicles that we use? How much will it cost us? How do we do it? How do we spread it across our products? How do we do it that our consumers will not be affected, even though we are making these changes and improving how we do business? So those are other questions that we need to ask. Another one is educators. And these educators, I will say, of course, the formal education within the school setting and everything. How do we communicate climate issues with young people? At what stage do we begin to tell them about climate change? Do we begin to tell them about how to live a climate friendly life? At what age? Do we wait for them to probably get into the university? Okay, I think for some of us, it's because we got into university and we're studying a climate related course like forestry and everything like that. That was how we began to learn about these things. Okay, I remember the first time I heard the word carbon sequestration. I mean, I'm not joking. Was 200 level, and that was when I did my first forestry course in 200 level. I think FWT 202 in Futa. Okay, great for parents. Okay, now that was the first time I heard about carbon sequestration. I tell you for free. Now, imagine just knowing about that in and that was like, how many years ago? That was like almost 10 years ago now. And just learning about hearing, not even like hearing about it for the first time. And it looks like a big time. So I began to think, for me, it started looking like, okay, is this something new? But as I began reading different research papers, I found that this has been a discourse for more than 50 years that they've been talking about it, for more than 40 years that they've been talking about it. So where was I in my primary school education that I didn't learn about these things? Okay, where was I in my secondary school education that I didn't learn about these things? And that is the part that educators can take, educating people from ground up. Even the Bible says that teach a child in the way it should go, and when, of course, when it grows up, it will not depart from it. So imagine I began to learn those things and I start making conscious decisions, even from my subconscious state that I didn't know so much. Look at the impact of that, that we could have contributed among the millions of children that we have in the country when it comes to climate issues. Another one is business leaders. Business leaders, how are we doing businesses? Like I mentioned the other time on our supply chain management, how do we think about if they are sustainable or not, those practices? Then the part where I will stop for now is, let's say, the community activist. What are we advocating for? What are we advocating for? Just like the way we, have strike when they don't pay our salary, just like the way we, just like the way we protest for things that are personal to us, we also need to see that there's a need to protest for environmental issues, not when they become a disaster, not when the flood has happened. How can we protest in a way that our drainage system should be fixed before there's a flood problem that will not make us protest that government should come to our rescue? Can our activism get to that level? That's another thing. So I'll stop for now.
All right, thank you so much. You really give very educative points in this section. You talked about how policymakers can work in harmony with researchers, and you talked about the bottom-top approach when it comes to educating people about climate change, environmental awareness, and these things from incorporating climate studies into curriculums from maybe primary school or secondary school, and people are exposed to what climate change is. And you also talked about sustainable businesses. I mean, that is awesome because I just looked at it in this direction. If NAFDA can only approve businesses or companies or something that it can only be sustainable, it's going to help the environment too. So thank you very much for those key points that you made. So our next question will be on the. I believe that you have worked with different disciplines, different people. You have collaborated on different occasions when it comes to climate crisis, climate issues, and different areas and disciplines. And I want to believe that it's not easy to work with people that do not really share your values and visions when it comes to climate actions. So could you please tell us how you were able to navigate these challenges? What kind of challenges did you encounter when collaborating with people? And how were you able to overcome these challenges too? Thank you.
Okay, that's a very good question. You see, just like every just like every kind of collaboration, okay, it's the same challenge that you face. And one, I would say it is the challenge of priority. The challenge of priority. Two, another one is the challenge of where someone is coming from. I would say past experience. All right. Two, under priority, I will still say something like value system. What do we value? So I will still call it priority. Then the other one is past experience, where the person is coming from. Okay, so in just the way we handle all kind of collaborations, considering these things, because when you work in group, you are collaborating with someone to achieve a specific task. Whatsoever the priority of that person is, we surely find its way across the project. So how do we handle this kind of thing? It is empathy. Simple. It is empathy. Empathy is looking at where the person is coming from, okay, and handling that person from that place, okay. Deal with that person from that place, and also explain your view to the person. Okay, take for example, say you are working with somebody who is just whose priority is to make money. Okay, how can we profit? How can we profit? And your priority is how can we reduce climate impact? Do you understand what I'm saying? How can we reduce climate impact? How do you want to harmonize the two priorities? A business person says, I want to make money. Let me even simplify it. Farmer and environment, which is my work exactly. Okay. How do we balance agricultural productivity, okay, and environmental impact? So you're talking to a farmer, and the farmer is like, I want to yield. As an environmentalist, we are saying don't use so much fertilizer. It has an effect on the environment. It affects the soil. There's nitrate leaching. There's N2A emission. There's this. There's that. There's everything. And the farmer is like, no, I don't care so much about the environment. I want agricultural productivity. Even when the farmer truly cares about the environment, what is his highest priority is yield, because he wants to make more money. So that is the kind of research that I'm doing in my PhD, is how can the farmer care about the environment and at the same time get yield? So how can we reduce environmental impact? So that is why I work in modeling, and we begin to test different scenarios that, okay, if we reduce fertilizer by 20%, what will the yield be? If we reduce, let's say it is their water use and everything, we are saying, "Oh, we don't want to irrigate so much because we want to conserve water." Okay, what will be the yield? So we begin to test different scenario. Okay, what if we use this amount of synthetic fertilizer and we use this amount of manure, or we remove synthetic fertilizer completely? What kind of strategy could we use? Should we introduce crop residue in the field? So we begin to test these different scenarios in our models using, big data. And at the end, be able to recommend, okay, if you leave crop residue on the field and you didn't take out all the residue, if you leave it on the field, and let's say you use manure instead of synthetic fertilizer, you're going to get yield that is as the same as when you use synthetic fertilizer that has an issue on the environment. And even while recommending, for example, manure, you also need to think about ammonia emission from the manure in the same time, because the production of the manure, the slurry, either pig slurry, cow slurry, there's also emission in that process. So you need to think from the beginning to the end. From the beginning to the end, okay, how is even the manure produced to the point of using it? Then you now begin to think about again, okay, even if you are applying manure, how can we improve nitrogen use efficiency in a way that the manure is consumed quickly before there's emissions that begin to affect the environment? Now, look at everything all together. It is about knowing how to balance both priority. I cannot say, I am an environmentalist. I'm an environmentalist. And somebody wants to make money and I'm saying the person is thinking negatively. No, the person who wants to make money also has a good priority, right? I want to conserve the environment. I also have a great priority. So to strike the balance, to conserve the environment, I also need money to do the things I want to do in conserving the environment. And the person who wants to make money needs a good environment to be alive to make the money. Okay, if there's air pollution, for example, how can the person make money? How many people were out there making money in COVID? How many people in 2020? How many people were out there in COVID? I worked on the data analysis of different total greenhouse gas emissions over the years from 1994 to 2021, and I found that in 2020 there was a drop in total greenhouse gas emission. Why? Because the environment was not so good. Even though that is a virus and everything like that, it was not so good for people to step out. There was lockdown, there were different kind of things, and production reduced, and there was lower greenhouse gas emission in that year. So look at that. So it's about balancing the priorities. Empathy. Don't say because I'm an environmentalist, I know it all, and it's just the environment. I don't care what happens elsewhere. So how do we balance the priorities among different people from different disciplines to achieve the ultimate result? And it has to be a win-win approach a lot of times for it to work. It has to be a win-win approach. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Yes, it has to be based on empathy, understanding the key issues, and how to provide solutions to them. Thank you so much. So our next question would be, as an interdisciplinary participant in climate change, it means that there are people from different fields. You might not really like, for me instance, I'm into climate itself, climate change policy. There are people that are studying urban forestry. There are people that are studying GIS. There are people that are studying forestry. There are people that are studying water, energy, but there is a way that they're linked into climate change. So as interdisciplinary participants, how can we foster local community communication in fighting climate change? Because most times the local communities are usually marginalized based on their exposure to technology and other things that they don't have advantage of. And most of them, when you say don't do this, don't cut down trees, don't kill, don't poach animals, don't burn charcoal, they don't really understand what you're saying. So how can we foster communications in local communities, and what are the effective communication approaches that we can use, or we can tell them to use in local community to make people become more aware about climate change, and how the anthropogenic activities, the human activities, also contribute to climate issues.
Okay. Thank you. My professor during my master's at American University of Beirut, Lebanon. Okay, one of the best schools in the world. Okay. Now, Professor Salma Talhouk, gave an example in a class. It was I've forgotten the name of the class. It's urban greening class, and he told us about a research they conducted, and they gave cameras to people that they should snap what they love, take a picture of what they love in the environment. Okay, and there was this boy, different people were taking pictures of trees, they were taking pictures of, clouds, the beautiful landscape and everything. And this boy took picture of the grandmother. He didn't take the picture of the environment, he took picture of the grandmother. And they were surprised, like, we didn't tell you to take the picture of a human being, take the picture of, I mean, the component of the environment that you love, that fascinates you. And he took the picture of the grandmother. And when they asked the boy, the boy's response, he said, I want to protect nature because it has kept my grandmother long in life. Now, look at that. Look at the priority of the boy. So, what nature means to that boy, what conservation means to him, is the long life the grandmother is experiencing. Isn't that amazing? Like, isn't that amazing? So, you cannot how do I put it, you need to speak the language of the local people. And the language is not just in terms of spoken words, it is about what they really think about nature, what they really think, what it means to them. I was reading a paper on the fact that a lot of scientific output that are documented, these are practices that our forefathers, they've been doing it to improve their farm yield. The difference is that they did not document it, or they did not have a structured way of documenting their processes. Before refrigerator, we've been drinking cold water. I posted it online. Like, there was this, there's a way they make the clay pot, and they like, the water is so cold. I mean, I took from it. That was how we had cold water in our village back then, even though, of course, people are having refrigerators now and everything. That was the way we had cold water, like, good one, years ago. So our forefathers, they've had ways that they do the things that they do before the advancement of science in that specific areas. So for them to understand what you are telling them scientifically, they need to be able to interpret it to their own language. And that is one of the project of Eden World, which is communicating conservation in local languages. When you talk about SDG and you put zero hunger, how does my grandmother in the village know the meaning of zero hunger to the point that I want to pursue it as an SDG? How does the local people who cannot speak English, the Igbo people in Nigeria, the Hausa people, even the subclass of the Hausa tribe, the subclass of the Igbos, the subclass of the Yoruba people, how can the Kale, the Akoko, the different people understand what you are telling them to do? So the first thing is to speak their language. To speak their language. And by speaking their language, it is not just about spoken word, it is about understanding their mindset about a specific thing, like that boy. So if you want to speak to that boy about nature conservation, you need to use long life as a as an indicator of why the boy should conserve nature. So, and we need to reduce the I'm looking at the how ambiguous climate change is. We need to reduce it. We need to be able to connect it to the things that people experience daily. Telling them that in the last 10 years, what was the yield of your farmland without using synthetic fertilizers? What was the yield of your farm in the last 10 years without using synthetic fertilizer? And they looked at it like, 10 years ago, I made so much money at the end of harvest. Okay, what is your productivity now on your farmland? If you're talking to farmers, say, now that, let's assume you are not using synthetic fertilizer. Can you compare the yield you're having now to the yield in the last 10 years? Then they're going to look at it. What is causing it? That is how you can explain climate change to him, and it can make sense to him. He needs to understand that it's affecting him one way or the other. Can they predict the pattern of rain like they could before? Can they still do, like, Can they predict the pattern of rain like, like they could years ago? These are indicators. So we need to drill down into what they can understand as indicators of climate change. Until then, can they take climate action? They need to connect to it. So we should not just have this solution that we put together in our cozy offices and in our cozy this thing. Even we are going to those villages, we sleep in the good hotels in the city, and then we drive, then we now enter, now now do the things that we do. We go in our suits and everything. They can't connect with us. And these are even the people that are in the community relations of science to the people. So that's another thing. We cannot just design a solution and say, "Oh, this is how you can do it to reduce climate change." We need to be able to connect with them, speak their language. Like it's very key. Speak their language beyond the spoken words, but dealing with their mindset. And how do you deal with their mindset? It is to understand the best indicator for them to understand climate change. You need to be able to show them like, okay, this is the indicator. You need to interpret the indicator to them like, based on this, this is caused by climate change. Until they can feel it, you can't solve the problem. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So I believe our audience are having a good time, and you're also getting as much value as you can get from this event right now. And I also want to believe that among those that are listening, we have undergraduates, we have fresh graduates, we have NYC corpers. So this is just a clarion call to just open your eyes that you can always integrate yourself into this atmosphere, regardless of the course that you finished with from school. And if you are serving currently in Nigeria, this is an opportunity for you to, get involved in community development and boost your CV too. You can pick one SDG goal that you want to achieve during your 1 year of NYSC and work towards it. And trust me, it's going to be commendable both on the local and the global level. Thank you so much again to our guest speaker. It has been an amazing time. So, second to the last question, I believe a professional. And as a professional, from your opinion and perspective, I would like you to tell us the disadvantages and advantages of interdisciplinary involvement in climate actions, and so that we can know what are the challenges and what are the advantages and disadvantages of this approach in climate actions. Thank you.
Okay. Um, do you know the shocking thing? Okay. Among everything you can talk about on earth, when it comes to, they say everything has merits and everything has demerits. To be sincere, interdisciplinary participation in climate action is one of those things in life that has no demerits. It has no single disadvantage. It is not even the fact that the advantage is greater than the disadvantage. No, it's not like that. It's I can say it's one of the big things that that has no disadvantage. It is just like marriage. Marriage has no single disadvantage. It is the people in marriage that are disadvantaged. The institution has no single disadvantage, like no single one. If you say it has a disadvantage and I say God is stupid, okay, it has no single disadvantage. It is the people involved that are disadvantaged people, okay? And that is the idea for everything you may want to say against it. So when it comes to partnership, when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to climate change, it will always have an advantage. Now, I will give an example of interdisciplinary participation. What is the tagline? Maybe people that are watching, you can put this in the comments. What are the things that are trending this year? The keywords that have been trending since the start of 2024. What is the theme? The social theme for 2024. No grief for anybody, ba? No grief for anybody. Is that not the keyword that has been trending in 2024? Okay, that's one of the keywords. If you look at the comedy landscape in the last this thing, if you mention freaky freaky, even someone who is a pastor of a church, so far the person is on YouTube, sees those kind of some content, even I've seen it on Twitter, we understand what they are referring to. They will remember somebody. Okay, they will remember somebody. When somebody says OBO, people could immediately connect to who they are talking about, even though those who don't listen to the songs. Now, imagine if our these artists and these influencers, they collaborate when it comes to climate action. They create content. We have trending hashtags that can make help people take climate action. Imagine the trending hashtag is no grief for climate change as a collaboration. Imagine the hashtag no grief for climate change. Just imagine that. Like for a few seconds, just think it. If that is what is trending, no grief for waste, no grief for flood, no grief for air pollution, no grief for every around climate change. How many Nigerian movies have you seen? How many? I'm not saying probably I'm not saying it's zero, but I'm just saying how many contents do you see online? How many movies do you see produced that address climate change, that help people to understand or to know the impact of climate change? That is why I'm saying look at if that kind of collaboration exists. See how far, just see how far we would have gone in that area. See how far we would have gone in that area. That's another thing. So do you want to talk about collaborate interdisciplinary participation when it comes to the health professionals? Imagine if health professionals are one of the things that is contributing to waste is gloves that they use in the hospital gloves is contributing a lot to waste. Now, just imagine if health professionals are saying, see, because I want to advocate for climate change, because I want to I advocate for climate change, we need gloves that are either reusable gloves, that's one, or gloves that can deteriorate quickly when they are used. All right, like they can how do I put it? Probably biodegradable gloves or things like that. Now, imagine if they advocate for those kind of products. Okay, imagine we advocate for those kind of products as we push the this thing about planting trees and the likes. I promise you, if we reduce deforestation and we plant more trees, the doctors will probably not have so much patients that they have in the hospital. Maybe I should tell you, there was a research that I was reading in one of our classes last 2 years on the mental health impact of trees. Mental health impact, like mental health. So that means probably psychologists will not have to deal with so many people. Okay, maybe they will not have to deal with so many people, and health insurance companies will make more money because a lot of people will not be using their health insurances. Now look at the impact if we contribute or participate together, okay, through our different disciplines in reducing climate change. Look at the benefit that is going to come for a lot of people. Okay, so it will always come with an advantage, no single disadvantage.
All right, thank you. Please, for our audience watching, if you have questions, you could just drop them in the comment section. Or pick one or two. Thank you so much. Over to our last question for this session. Um, we have talked about so many things, and it's I would say the bedrock for a lot of things is awareness and education. So how can education institutions support in that interdisciplinary approaches, knowing that the next generations, or we are the generations, right, are the leaders of tomorrow, as we always know or we have been told. So how can the educational system support these approaches and prepare the next generation for this climate crisis, climate fight, sustainable environment? And also, if possible, we can suggest different method or approaches that the educational sectors, the institutions can incorporate in their program to better prepare people for the climate atmosphere. Thank you.
Okay. Firstly, I saw something in the comment from I think Uneku Odiba. I don't know the pronunciation of the name. I'm so sorry if I didn't pronounce it rightly. She said, "I'm a lawyer and I'm interested in climate change induced litigation." Look at that. A lawyer is already seeing how I can contribute, to climate change, to reducing the impact of climate change. Now imagine that. That's taking climate action in the law space. Isn't that amazing? Okay. Now, coming back to the question, is what the educational sector can do is for the educational sector to make a lot of effort in breaking some kind of social barriers that we have. Like there needs to be education, both formal and informal, about is it reorientation now, giving people new kind of orientation on some things that are in our mind. And I'm going to give you an example. I would distill it down to what individuals can do as consumers. As consumers, imagine if through formal and informal education, we begin to encourage people to make sustainable choices in their daily lives, such as reducing waste and supporting eco-friendly products. So to the point that if we educate people that eco-friendly products are like they are the best things to do, to use, the best kind of products to use. Just imagine for a minute if you didn't study forestry, or you didn't study environmental science, or you didn't study like biology, you didn't study any agri nature or something related course. Do you think they would have used climate friendly languages in your classrooms? Do you think the keywords that we are mentioning, sustainability, climate change, environment, do you think they would have occurred to you during your all your three stages of education? Okay, that seem like the compulsory stages of education, like primary, secondary, and tertiary. Because anything after that is by choice. It is by choice that you do masters. It's by choice that you are doing PhD. Okay, now for those three stages, if you had not studied like anything in relation to environmental science, would they have mentioned any of those keywords in your classrooms? Would you have learned about them? And that is the past education can do. We need to begin to use more of sustainable terminologies in our classrooms. Okay, that is in the formal space. In the informal space, we need to begin to tell people to make good choices, sustainable choices in their daily lives. Now, let's break one social ideology. If you are a lady and you are putting on okrika, what you call okrika, that is used clothes, right? You bought used clothes. Now, even you are smiling, honor, you are smiling. Imagine how you will be labeled in the society for using second-hand material. Think about it for a minute. Is that not a social problem? Is that not a social problem? If you buy used shoes, even if you want to go to a cricket store, as you are talking with me like this, you will hide when entering. You'll be looking around all those places that they drop all those clothes where people go to buy clothes. They'll be hiding and be looking. They shouldn't see me, or that I'm buying this kind of thing, and like that. How many people can be proud to say what I'm wearing, this shoe I'm putting on, is a used shoe? How many people can proudly say what I'm using is a used product? Almost nobody, and it's a social problem. And I'll tell you, I can proudly tell you that despite, of course, not living in Nigeria, almost everything in my room that you are looking at, they are all used products. Almost everything. The only thing that's probably new in this room is the bed. Not even the frame. I'm talking about the mattress. Is the only thing that is new. And the only thing that mattress is new was because as at the time I needed to buy a mattress on the platform where we get used products, it wasn't available at that point. And I, of course, I couldn't. I slept on the floor for like that. That was how I waited to buy a used product, not just because of lack of money, but because I'm contributing to the environment by using used products instead of having somebody dispose it. Imagine the e-waste, the electronic waste, some electronics that could be fixed easily. You buy them, use some shoes. People listening to this now, check your wardrobe, check the clothes you've disposed, check the shoes you've disposed, and begin to understand that your own used stuff is somebody else's new stuff. There are people that cannot even afford to buy new things, and you are disposing the things you have. Sometimes you dispose clothes because the armpit it got torn on the armpit. Okay, sometimes you dispose your shoes because the sole removed a bit. But do you know that if we have a space, like if we break the social ideology of used materials in Nigeria as a country, and it becomes a norm for people to use secondhand stuff, we will reduce a lot of waste. I can't give you a specific number. I'm a scientist, so Except I've done the research and I find the digits, I can't give it out. Okay. But in my assumption, in my assumptive state, we will reduce a lot of waste. The couch in my room is a used product. The TV is a used product. The bed frame is a used product. It's second hand. Okay. The table that I'm placing this computer on is a used product. The monitor, my screen that I'm speaking from, is a used product. The lamp on my desk is a used product. The plates that I have in my room, they are used. They are not new. We have second-hand stores around where we go to get second-hand things, and we go there with pride. We buy winter shoes used. We buy slippers used. Somebody has used them. You buy palm sandals used. You buy shoes used. You buy jean trousers used. You even buy clothes. You buy jackets used. You buy suits used, because you are reducing waste by taking those actions. Now, just imagine if we are re-educated and we break that social barrier that make it seem like it is only a big deal when you buy new things. If you if somebody has used it before and you start using it, it is new for you, it is old for the person. Okay? It is new for you and it is old for the person. What your used product is somebody's new product. So we need to break that social ideology, and that is one thing education can do. It is a big deal. It is what education can do. Okay? So that is where I will rest my case.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate. I remember when I was serving with NTF, I was the one in charge of establishing conservation clubs in schools before the COVID came. So I'll go to those schools and talk about climate change, climate actions. I would take them on tree planting. This was secondary schools, and they were so excited about, because at the end of the club per day, I would organize quiz and give them prizes. So they were really interested. So people can come up with different initiatives anywhere you find yourself to make sure that people are aware about what is going on in our society. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate this time and we all appreciate. I can see one question here. Somebody said, could you please link poverty and climate change problems eradication?
Yeah, I got the question.
Okay.
Okay. Now, poverty is multidimensional. Okay? Poverty is multidimensional. But if we are to deal with the dimension of poverty, for example, one, sometimes there are poverty that is induced by the poor themselves. There are poverty that is induced by the society where whosoever finds themselves. If you live in a poor community, there's a probability that you are going to find yourself in a poor state. All right. And when it comes to climate change, how can a poor person, for example, I used to make this that the our parents who cook with fuel wood and they go to cut fuel wood in the forest, for example, you know, they are contributing to climate change, right? Not to the mitigation of climate change. By doing that, they will cook with fuel wood and every of those things. And I started thinking about it, like, how can we solve the problem? So you tell them to use, let's say, gas, for example. You tell them to use gas, for example. How do a lot of them want to get money to buy? How much is 1 kg of gas now in Nigeria? How much is 1 kg of gas? I think it's expensive for somebody to purchase. All right, it's expensive. So if this still, I mean, rolls back to the part of policymakers. Imagine if the way we are giving subsidy on some kind of things, and we are giving subsidies on gas, for example, in a way that almost everybody can access it, in a way that almost everybody, based on people's basic income, they can use gas cookers in their houses and they can get gas that is enough for them from their basic income. Do you understand? It is not like even in other part of the world, a lot of country works via like subsidizing specific products. that are regular use products of people, that are regular use products of people. And there are some products that are luxury products that I think they subsidize that shouldn't be subsidized. That it is the rich that, I mean, use only those products. If there's a redistribution in the costs, on like luxury product gets this kind of increase, and this kind of product that is regular product that everybody use get this kind of decrease. But the conversation about around poverty and climate change is not what I can unravel deeply now. So I'm just talking about just a very minute part of it, because poverty is multidimensional. When you talk about poverty, we need to understand what are the indicators of the poverty that you're using to say this person is poor. Okay, that this person is poor. For example, is it someone who earns minimum wage? Is that the kind of poverty you are talking about? Is it somebody who has no income at all? Is that the kind of poverty that you are talking about? So each of the indicators that you are using to determine poverty will tell us how we can solve each problem. So if somebody does not have a job, and that is the indicator we are using to measure poverty for the person, then getting the person a job, of course, a sustainable job, is a solution in that direction. So there was one thing that they did in this country where people went into the villages, and they started teaching the people how to improve the value of their produce. So if you get let's use locust bean for example. Locust bean, if you go to a village normally within the value chain, they're in the lower part of the value chain. The people that really grow the locust bean, what you call is the iru now, for example. The people that really grow it, they're in the lowest part of the value chain. So if you want to help them to deal with poverty, it is to go there and train them on how they can have the iru in a packaged form that can easily go into the city. So if you do that, the value chain will increase. It is not the same cost that they sell it that they will be selling it now. So that's another way that they've attacked poverty. It is to, instead of allowing people, they go buy it cheap from these people, then the rich people take it to the city, then they increase the value of the product through packaging, through storage, every of those things, and they sell it at higher price. So they go to those villages and go improve the value chain for those people in the village right there. That's why there's a course in Netherlands on agricultural value chain, something like that, which is a solution to help the poor. Okay, the cassava, the gari, for example. Okay, if you go to the store, sometimes you buy gari for a lot of dollars. Okay, how can people produce gari in those local areas? Okay, how can they improve the value chain of gari, for example? That can also be another way to deal with it. But the relationship between poverty and climate change is like very deep. Okay, and I don't think I'm ready for that to go deeper into it now. But that's just a perspective to it. And I know this doesn't answer your question ultimately. Okay. But I'm sure maybe we're going to have that conversation on Eden World Green Talk with someone another time. So that's a good idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It has been very educative, almost 1 hour now, and I'm sure our time has not been wasted at all. I want to sincerely appreciate everyone that has joined this webinar. I'm seeing a lot of comments here and people excited to join in this conversation. I mean, young people, and I'm really impressed and glad. And I'm sure that we are taking home one or two key points here today. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody. So this is Eden World Conservation Initiative, and we are an NGO that focus on promoting the gospel about conservation, climate change, biodiversity, forestry, creating sustainable environment. And my name is Honor Afinjomolowatuni. I am a master student under the African Union Scholarship studying climate change policy at the Pan African University in Algeria, and I am the head of Green Talk for Eden World Initiative. And I'm also the host for this program today. So thank you so much everyone for coming. Special thanks to our guest speaker, Meshach Aderele. It
Yeah,
has
sorry,
been
Honor. Can I say something? Uh,
okay.
which is like, I think we need to have a hashtag when it comes to climate action, which is okirika, no be bad thing. Okay, okirika, no be bad thing. If you can't take anything home today, take it. I want to see it in the chat section. Like okirika, no be bad thing. I think we need to start it. We don't need to wait for education for that. Okirika, no be bad thing. Use the hashtag. Using second-hand product is not a bad thing. Okirika, no be bad thing. I think it's a hashtag that we can promote. So okirika, no be bad thing. That's it.
Okay, somebody dropped a question now, wanting to know if there are sectors or discipline that require uh, utmost focus in addressing climate issue. I would say all sectors.
All,
uh, all
all.
sectors are
It's
required.
so
There is no
urgent.
special
All.
sector. As long as you are on planet Earth and you are in a sector, you have to integrate that into climate crisis and fighting climate change, because directly or indirectly you are contributing to greenhouse gases. Yeah, so you have to be on your toes. So there are no special sectors right now. All sectors that are involved in climate change. So I hope that answer your question. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. So please
Thank you.
keep abreast of our forthcoming webinar, because we are going to be doing a lot. It's so much. We're going to be doing so much this year, having discussion, bringing up experts in different fields, talking about different topics that affect us as humans when it comes to climate change and sustainable environment. All right. Thank you so much again, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you
you for
very much.
joining, and
Yeah.
see you next time.
Yeah. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.